Hello again, my name is Rodney Reynolds and this is yet another video review. Today I will be looking at iWill's KK266R, the RAID motherboard. I'll also be looking at the OCZ 150MHz plus performance enhanced memory. First I'll have a look at the OCZ memory. This is of course the OCZ PC150 performance enhanced memory. This is actually Infineon memory and it's 7.5 nanoseconds. I have this memory right now currently on my system, which is a 1.2 gigahertz system. I have it at 153 and I have all the BIOS memory settings maxed. I'll show you those settings a bit later. And this, of course, is the box that the motherboard actually comes in. iWill is kind of unique in a way. It comes in these, of course, the outside of the box is cardboard, but the inside of the box is actually plastic, and it's inside of plastic, so it's very well packaged. And, of course, it comes with all the manuals and the cables and so on. This is the motherboard, the KK266R from iWill. I'll just go over some of the basic things in this motherboard. Of course, you have your slots here, you have your AGP, you have 6 PCI here, and you even have an ISA slot here. The memory is located here. You have your RAID here. You have your floppies, the white here. Your blue are the IDEs. Of course, here is where your CPU would go. And if you look on the back here, very common to a lot of motherboards, you have your keyboard and your mouse here, your USB here, your COM ports here, your parallel here, your game, and your sound in and out, and auxiliaries here. Now this motherboard does come with sound on it. Now, a couple features that if you're thinking about overclocking this board or basically getting your CPU at its maximum performance, you want to keep in mind a couple things here. I'll just go over those things. You have a few jumper settings on this motherboard to set. This one here, if you note the location of it, it's just to the left of the memory banks. This one actually controls the front side bus. So depending if whether you have a 200 or a 266 front side bus, you would use this jumper to change that setting. Over here, this one here is very important if you're overclocking your system, and especially if you're trying to get maximum performance out of your RAM. This is the VIO setting, and of course the default of this would be 3.4 volts when it is completely taken out. Now there's two settings for this. You could have it at jumper 1 and 2, that's a 5% increase on voltage, and you can also increase it by 10% across the jumpers of 2 and 3, and of course that would give you a 10% increase. So again, this one here is very important to get your system very stable at high front side bus memory settings. Now there's a couple other things on the motherboard. I was speaking a second ago about the audio. This is of course to enable and disable your audio. Right here is that simple jumper to enable or disable. Also this motherboard of course comes with RAID. A RAID setup, and here we have the jumper for the RAID. So you can enable it like I have right here, or you can disable it by doing 2 and 3. So again, very simple to set these jumpers and get maximum performance out of this motherboard. Something else to note for fans, you can have up to 3 fans on this computer system, so you can directly plug them right in. This is the 3-pin power connectors. Here you have one here, you have one here, and you have one here. Let me now show you some of the BIOS settings. This is the iWill KK266R BIOS. This is a June 22nd, 2001 BIOS. I'll just go through some of the features here on this BIOS. The first one being the standard CMOS features. This includes setting the date, setting the time, your hard drives, as well as the floppy drives. The advanced BIOS features include such things as CPU internal cache. Of course, all that would be enabled, external cache, L2 cache, and of course the boot sequence. I have mine set up as the first one being CD-ROM, second one floppy, and the third one is a RAID. And you can also do something very distinctive on this particular motherboard. You can actually boot from a USB device. So if you have a USB floppy, zip, or CD-ROM or a USB hard drive, you can actually boot from that USB device. Going on to advanced chipset features. Now this is where things get a little bit interesting here. If you're using very good RAM, what you can do is you can set it to max. So I have it at the max, the fastest settings, including case 2 as well as the bank interleave at 4. Remember, I'm using the OCZ PC150 memory. Going on to integrated peripherals here. This is where you would set up and enable or disable your IDE channel 0 or channel 1 and enable or disable your primary, secondary, slaves and master drives and so on. Also on here, of course, is your settings for parallel ports and your COM ports. Power management, this is where you would set power management functions like wake states of your local area network or incoming things on your modems and so on. Plug and play, this is the, of course, plug and play feature for most new operating systems on the go, and you would enable this to yes. PC health area, this is of course showing your CPU temperature, your system temperature, your current CPU fan, your current system fan speeds as well. Now this is iWill Smart Setting. This is where you can set your front side bus, your multiplier, your voltage. If you look here, the first thing that I have my CPU clock or front side bus set at is 153. Now remember, I'm using the OCZ PC150 memory. I have a multiplier of 9. I have my voltage at 1.775. I'm using a 1.2 gigahertz, and I have it overclocked to 1377 megahertz, which is approximately around 1.4 gigahertz. And something else distinctive about this is that there's a BIOS, a Rom Flash Protect. This is excellent if you have someone else on your system, or if you have kids and you do not want them to be flashing your BIOS. Certainly a good idea, because sometimes if you don't know what you're doing when you're flashing the BIOS of a particular motherboard, you could ruin the BIOS, of course, and render the motherboard useless. So that's a good feature. The rest of the options in this BIOS are the same pretty much as any other BIOS. Load fail-safes, load optimize, set the supervisor passwords, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now let me show you the RAID setup on this motherboard. First thing you want to realize is that in order to be RAID compliant, so to speak, you need to have drives of pretty much the identical size. I would recommend. I have in my case 2 Maxter 20 gigs ATA 100 7200 RPM drives, and I have both of them on master, and one on the primary and one on the secondary RAID IDE. Okay, so what you're looking at here now is actually the RAID setup, and I would go Control M to enter into the RAID. So this is actually when you're inside of the Mega RAID IDD setup utility. This is version 2.50115A. This has a very easy feature. What you can do here is actually press F1 to get the auto config stripe. You can also do the mirror. You can also do a RAID 10. It depends again on how many hard drive you have, and if you want a RAID 0 for performance or other RAID options as well. I'm going to go with the first option, the F1, which is basically RAID 0. So I'm going to press F1. It'll say old configuration will be lost. That's fine. And then I will go through and set up it automatically, best suiting the hard drives which are installed. You save it, and of course then you reboot, and then your RAID is ready. Very simple setup on this motherboard for RAID. The iWill KK266R motherboard is a fantastic motherboard. I give it a 9.5 out of 10. It has RAID on board. It has audio on board. It has the stability, the overclockability, and the performance you expect from an iWill product. Certainly this motherboard from iWill will not let you down. Now as for the OCZ PC150MHz RAM, the performance enhanced memory, I give this a 10 out of 10. This is some really amazing memory. I've got it beyond 155, all memory settings max. That is important. Remember